Yeah. Welcome back to the 525 Records podcast. We're back at it again with an amazing episode. My guests today, Pat and Susan Kearns, formerly of the Portland metro area, now residents of Joshua Tree, California, where they started an amazing studio called Goat Mountain. And I was just out there for a few days tracking a new record from Andrew Leach, and I got a chance to finally sit down and get them on the pod. I've been wanting to get them on the pod for 2 years. It just never worked out. I finally got out there. We finally did an episode, and I think it's probably one of the best 525 podcasts that I put out. He's an amazing dude. He's been an owner and operator of recording studios for almost 30 years, and he's got a fabulous list of credits. He's even got a Wikipedia page. Check this out. Pat Kearns, born November 10th, 1970, is an American record producer, recording engineer, songwriter, guitarist, and vocalist. What you're listening to right now is his old band, Blue Skies for Black Hearts, who were absolute road warriors. Those guys went everywhere. What you're listening to right now is from an app called Wolfgang's Vault, which is where live concerts live. In 2012, they happened to be at the Daytrotter Studios in Rock Island, Illinois, and they cut this live, and it's amazing. It's one of my favorite Blue Sky songs, Fridays After 5. You can check it out. The Michael Lewis slide guitar is fan-fucking-tastic on this track. Let's take a little listen, real quick. Little teaser. Fucking incredible. His list of credits, they're way too long to mention. Exploding Hearts, just to name one. Sons of Huns, an amazing Portland band. And he's also got his own records. He's done a number of solo records. Most recently, he put out a record called Getting Lost, which you can find on his Bandcamp. And this is my favorite song. It's called Last of the Golden Rays, and it's got a great solo. I think it's incredible. Take a listen.
Last of the golden rays until the dawn.
Got a beautiful bottle of Costco Bordeaux, which I'm imbibing. Cheers to all you 525 fans out there. Yeah, so check out that record. It's really good. You probably heard the Rhodes keyboard there. That was the great Mark Breitenbach, who played on all of this record. Also played on the majority of the Blue Skies for Black Hearts records. And I'm just so excited to finally be able to get these guys on the podcast. If you're in the market for a recording studio and you're in Southern California, Goat Mountain, man, it's amazing. This is an amazing live room, 14-foot ceilings, designed by an architect. No parallel walls. The reverb is fucking phenomenal. He's got these amazing room mics. They're Edwinas. We talk about all this on the podcast. I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, if you're in the market for a recording studio in SoCal, this is he's completely off the grid. It's solar powered. They got panels on the roof. He's got 30 years of owning and operating studios under him. It's an amazing place to go and record. And, you know, the thing about most studios is there's no windows, right? It's in some commercial lease space, and there's, you know, it's a live room, a control room. There's no windows. It's just, you know, it's like boxy and claustrophobic. And the best part about Goat Mountain is after you get done cutting a track and you want to have a listen, you just pop out onto the patio, onto the deck, and then you have this amazing view, and you get outside in the sunshine, and it's just an amazing experience. I can't recommend it highly enough. I'm so excited to finally have these guys on the podcast, so I hope you enjoy the episode. It's the 525 Records podcast. Pat and Susan Kearns. Enjoy. You guys miss Portland at all at this point?
Certain things about it. What do you think, Pat? I might miss it a little more than Pat does.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I miss things like the fruit in the summer and summers in Portland in general. But I mean, a lot of what I miss about Portland, it's not there anymore. So
I feel the same exact way.
Yeah.
So it's weird to miss it and be like, when you ask me that, it's like you miss it, like you want to go back. There's nothing to go back to that. Not nothing, but all the things that I was there for in the first place don't really exist, or
There'd be narrow disappointment if we went back.
at least the same facets don't exist. I mean, I miss the variety of music that we had around there. It seems to be dominated by Americana now, which is a genre I'm walking through myself, but it was just so much more interesting when, weird shit went on. When you'd show up and just have your mind blown by some Portland strangeness,
You remember a band called Gaytheist?
I love
Oh, yeah,
Gaytheist.
we love those guys.
Yeah.
I saw that was one of your. I don't know who was there. I think it was a. What's the Mark Brackett? Sons of Huns.
Yeah.
Sons of Huns.
I used to
Gaytheist,
play with them a lot, yeah.
Yeah, at Ron's house.
I remember that show. I was there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I can't remember if you guys played, but
No, I didn't play. I think I was just hanging out. I don't think I mean, Blue Skies might have played with Gaytheist. I know that my old band, Big Jim, played with Willamette Jack's Finger and Toe Clinic, which was the main guy, the guy that wears a bow tie in Gaytheist. That was his band a long time ago. It was weird. It was weird. I mean, I've met those guys. I don't know any of them personally. I think the main guy, his name might be Jason. I'm not sure. Sorry, dude, if I didn't get it right. But I like those guys, and that was the kind of thing. Like, you could all be from different scenes, and there was just a weird, nice camaraderie between bands there. Not all the time, but most of the time.
welcome to the 525 Records podcast. My guest today, I've been wanting to have on the show for a long time. We finally made it happen. We're out in Joshua Tree, California, home of the fabulous recording facility, Goat Mountain, the Goat Mountain Studios, owned by Pat and Susan Kearns, who are my guests today. They're former Portland exiles that have moved down to the Mojave, and I couldn't be happier because I live in Vegas, and now I can just pop over whenever I get a chance. And there's no better place to do a record. So it's my honor and privilege to have Pat and Susan Kearns on the 525 Records podcast today. How you guys doing?
Good.
Doing really good. It's really good to have you here, Elliot.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here. So take me back to Seattle and those early days, I mean, is that where you got your musical start?
Kinda. I was from Portland, Oregon. I moved to Seattle to go to college in 1989. The summer of 89, and I was really interested in bands in high school and interested in music and that kind of thing, but I thought, like, when you got to college, you're paying for the school, you better get serious. And so I put all my guitars away and amps away, and that lasted, I brought them up to Seattle with me, but they were like all underneath my desk, pushed back, just sort of in storage, like I wasn't going to get them out. I think that lasted like 2 weeks. And my roommate was a member of the Sub Pop Singles Club. And the Nirvana single Lovvers had just come out. And
It was a radio hit.
yeah. And especially up there. And yeah, just like kind of, I mean, if you were trying to take life seriously and get away from the music business, I probably couldn't have picked a worse place to move in the fall of '89 and late summer of '89. Terrible.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't like right back into it or anything like that, but I participated and went to shows and saw Mudhoney and Alice in Chains and many times, and Nirvana, of course, and the Melvins and Love Battery and
Melvin's on tour
the
right
Gits, 7 Year Bitch. Those were all kind of Hammerbox, some of my favorite bands of that era. And I got sucked into it and tried to still go to school at the same time. And then somewhere along the line, I still stayed in school, but music became more dominant, and I started working at KCMU, this on-campus radio station at the University of Washington, and became a DJ and doing late nights and afternoon drive time.
And we should say now that you are currently a DJ. You've got a fabulous radio show, the Z1077 Local Music Showcase.
That's correct.
If you have TuneIn, you should be able to get it. I listen pretty much every week.
Yeah, there's a podcast version, so.
Yeah. That's how I hear it.
Yeah.
Which, that's the thing I was really meaning to ask you. What if you had to cut that show live in the radio studio at the same exact time every week? I mean, right now you can cut an episode whenever you want.
For how much I get paid, it would be very difficult because it's, a radio show, it locks your schedule. So it's really nice. I cut it live here in the studio. I more or less cut it live. I actually fast forward. I preview the songs before the show, so I know what I'm going to play like a normal show. But during the show, I just cut the breaks really fast.
And if you don't feel like doing it, you can come back later on that day or whatever.
Yeah, through it. No, that almost never happens. It just, I cut it in order live. There's maybe a couple edits where, I mess up a band's name and I cut that out so they don't have to deal with that. That's the common one.
I mean, you got to fill an hour every week. That's
It's 2 hours now.
Okay, well, yeah.
Got extended.
Yeah.
And on the most recent episode, the October 9th episode of the Z1077, I was listening to it while driving down here, and there was a fantastic band on that episode by the name of Yvonne Champagne, and with an album called Murder Wins.
It's a concept album.
Okay, tell me about it.
So we're a 3-piece band. There's 2 bass, guitars, and a drummer, all female. And we started doing like concept albums. So this new album, Murder Wins, it's all about the murder winds in the desert. If you don't know what that is,
I don't. Tell me, what are the murder winds? When do they come?
It's
twice a year, maybe.
Yeah, it's specific. Well, kind of. It's specific to this area. It's related to the Santa Ana winds and.
It could happen at any time, but there is a season.
Yeah.
So is it an easterly flow where it's offshore, where it reverses the normal pattern? Is that?
They actually usually come from that direction at this point and blow this way.
But they kind of be.
But they can come from
easterly.
From behind us.
I wish the listeners could see this beautiful landscape. We're on the patio and a bench looking south over the fabulous valley landscape. We just experienced one of every night. Seems like an amazing sunset.
Yeah.
And but ever since I've heard Murder Winds, I can't get it out of my head. I just keep thinking murder winds make you drink, running like a freight train through your day. I mean, Yvonne Champagne, check it out. It's pretty cool, and you can hear them.
Yeah, these winds are kind of late winter, and they're cold, and they're consistent, and they go on for weeks, and they keep you inside.
Sometimes it gets to the point where you're just like, there's a thing called wind exhaustion here, where you just get exhausted from the constant assault of wind. So that's what that record's about.
That we get a little of that in Vegas, but we just go in a casino, and I mean, you guys have been out here 5 years now, 6 years?
I've been out here 5.5 years now.
We're at Landers, California.
Well, full-time 5.5 years. We've been here 8 years now.
What's the difference between Landers and Flamingo Heights? Like, how far would you have to go to be out of Landers?
Flamingo Heights is those lights up against the mountains over there.
Okay.
So, you know the market you keep going to, the Halliday?
Oh yeah, I'm the big spender down there.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly. Everybody is who comes to the studio. It's really
Once
funny.
you make that left at the Halliday and kind of go down that road, that's Flamingo Heights area.
Which I gotta say, I ran into some, I think, single mothers in the market today. Just they're all going in there to buy lottery tickets and booze, and they had their kids with them, and they were all like blonde hair. I was like, wow, this is the busiest I've ever seen the market. You know?
Oh, the market gets busy. There's not much going on in Landers. And so people hang out.
There's
at
a
the
morning
Holiday.
scene there for coffee.
But I mean, being out here, are there like different little neighborhood cliques, like, you know?
Yeah, no. I think two things go on. I think you tend to hang out with people from your neighborhood just because they're close to you, but you also tend to find your brothers and sisters that, they may live on the other side of the basin, like in Wonder Valley, but you have things in common, like maybe liking live music and art and that kind of thing. And you hang out with them too. But by proximity, you maybe don't hang out with them as much as you might hang out with an artist in your own community. So you get these just natural, by the selection of geography and common interests,
it's a big
things
change.
build.
And we're friends with a lot of musicians, and there's limited performance spaces out here. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're bound to play with a band from the neighboring community,
Right.
just by default.
I mean, being in the Pacific Northwest, it's lush, it's green for the most part. Maybe not anymore with the mega drought, but always used to be nice and cool and moist and lots of rain. And coming down here, it's a big change, And
Well, if I do anything, I want to make a change.
yeah,
I don't want to say like I'm one of those people when I go big, or when I go big. It's not like that. It's more like, if I've lived in a rainy place my whole life, like, and I have to move, I would rather it be really different in some way than Portland.
Well, speaking of going big, you built a studio, brand new construction. You guys have 5 acres out here?
Yeah,
Something like
Yeah, 5 acres.
And it was an arduous process, right? Like, contractors laying concrete,
It was a big project, the biggest thing I've ever done like that in my life.
And it took at least a year, right? Or was it 2 years?
2 years of
probably
construction,
took,
I believe.
A year and 3/4 of construction, I think, and then
And then you got all the wiring and everything that
like
makes the studio work.
9 months really to set the studio up. Once, like right at the top of pandemic, March 2020, around March 12th, like right when it started, that was when the workmen kind of completed up. And there was just baseboards. Susan and I did the baseboards. And that was the last like thing to be done to the building. And we started that right at the top of pandemic. And then, like, you have to go through everything. That was just like closing the building up. And then it was like getting all the gear in and moving things around and wiring the place up. Even though we started, like, the building was done in March 2020, it wasn't until November 2020 that, like, we closed up the wiring tunnel and the pits and things like that. And that's the point
Where it was ready to go.
Yeah, where I see the studio is officially open, when we didn't have to open the wiring pit to do 10 other things, which was, I snuck Gabriel Hart in here in September of 2020, but it was like, as soon as he left, I unscrewed the panels, the wood panels that are over where I sit at the console, and opened that pit back up. And kept wiring for another month and a half.
I mean, it's, I wish we had some video. I mean, the snakes of wires. What I love is the spirals going around the one leg of the console platform, where, it's like, 2 different groups of wires snaking around each other.
Yeah, there's
it just looks cool.
That's going over to the computer. I know what you're talking about. That particular set is going over to the computer, so there's 24 ins, 24 outs in that spool going down there. But there's also 2 in that spool for the headphone amps. So that's a total of 50 lines that are
we might as well go full on gear sled. And your console is an AMEC.
It's an AMAC Angela from 1985.
It's man.
From Portland, Oregon.
It happens to be from Portland, Oregon.
So when you get under there trying to wire the patch bay, is it they're all old school?
Yeah, we did all that. So when I got it here, what happened is I got it here. I bought it from Rex Recording in Portland, Oregon. And
there's another board in the studio.
yeah, it's my old console.
Okay, and it says Rex on the cover. Is that?
That's because
That's
I
the
have
cover
the
from-
cover from the AMAC on that one because I always use the AMAC, so it's pretty dust free because, like, I'm using it. My hands are all over it, and we wipe it down and all that kind of thing. That one
Right.
sits over there. So
There's a beautiful 2-inch Otari. I mean,
Yep.
you've got this like horde of amazing gear, and I want to dive into your mic collection.
well, we should talk about some of these though. If anybody's out there and you are a serious studio person,
A total gear slut.
yeah, I mean, I'm looking for a special place for that one that's under the cover to go to. That's a special console, and I have to take care of it. And so part of taking care of it is passing it on when it's time to the right person. And I'm ready to pass it on, but I haven't found the right person. So if you're out there, I have a Sound Workshop Series 34 that's been fully customized because it was hired from A&M Recording in, I think it was 88 or 86. I can't remember. But anyway, it was on the mobile trucks for the Rattle and Hum tour. Not the tour to promote Rattle and Hum, but the tour that they made the movie from. Whatever. I guess that was the Joshua Tree tour.
And is that was the board? I should preface this. Pat Kearns, the amazing Pat Kearns, has owned and operated studios for the last 25 years.
It's going to be 30 years next year.
Starting with a little studio called Studio 13.
No, well, so my first session was 30 years ago on a 4-track cassette. I think Studio 13, I want to say, opened in about 97, so 25 years ago.
In the west side of Portland, as I recall.
Yeah, and on Capitol Highway, where Capitol Highway began in Hillsdale.
And what I remember is our bands, we tracked at a place called the Color Lab, which was
Very short-lived, but man, that was a fucking space.
That was a huge space. The square footage
Yeah.
was ridiculous. How did you even get that commercial lease? I mean,
I just got I was working on a record for Jerry Joseph at the time at Jackpot Recording. We were also using Studio 13, and they saw Studio 13. They were like, "You ever thought about moving?" I was like, I'm thinking about moving right now, but I was like, I mean, I've been busy on your record. I haven't thought about it. And Brad Rosen, the drummer, was like, "I know these dudes. Let me introduce you to them." And I just kind of forgot about it. And then like 6 weeks later or something like that, he's like, "I'm with this guy. I think his name was, I think it was Eli Babs. That's right. And he was the son of Babs, who was, is it Mike Babs? I can't remember his name, but he's Ken Kesey's best friend. And so all these people were, their parents were merry pranksters.
oh,
And these properties, I sort of found out were, I believe this property anyway, was owned by the merry pranksters or somebody affiliated, and Eli was running it. And yeah, he let us run it for a little while.
it was somewhere downtown.
Yeah, it was in the old Paramount Filmworks building on 17th and
I don't remember the name of the street, but I remember
Lovejoy. 17th and
Lovejoy.
Lovejoy.
That's it.
You were rocking a moped at that time, right?
This
Or
was not a moped. It was a scooter.
Okay.
Scooter.
I don't want to get off track. So this is the location of the Color Lab. One of my bands was lucky enough to track a record there, which we had a fabulous time doing.
Yeah.
It was the most amazing echo chamber.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
That was amazing.
So that was, we had it was 2,500 square foot space with a stage in there, huge chandelier, good ceilings, like old Portland type warehouse building.
The load in and load out was great. It was like a warehouse.
Yeah, you pulled into this weird alley and just like came down through double doors, through steps onto a beautiful floor that everybody set up on. We just baffled off there.
What was the echo chamber before it was an echo chamber? What were they using it as?
It was the film vault to keep the reels of film safe in case of a fire. And so they were built with they were completely made out of concrete, but it was like super thick concrete, and they were long. I feel like it was like, they were probably like 10 by 60 or something, 10 by 40 kind of thing.
And you kept the name Color Lab.
That was because
of the film.
Because
film
of the
studio.
there was a place called the Color Lab where they started doing film processing in that building. Well, I don't know if we were in that space. We were just looking. I've always looked at the history or things in the area to name my studios, with the exception of Studio 13.
And so how did you wind up wiring the echo chamber? Like, what were the mics?
We just took the band PA, and we had it in there, and we had it on stand. And I don't remember. Matt Morgan, my partner, had some funky mics. He probably doesn't even remember. But we just dedicated these mics. We hung them from the light in the back. No, it was the other way. I think the speakers were in the very back, and the microphones were in the very front, in case we wanted to get at them. Maybe it was the other way. I don't even remember. But the microphone was hanging from a boom that was taped and everything to the light fixture up there. And we had a pair of microphones, so you could do reverb and stereo, and you just crank it through the PA. And the mics were in the back. I'm remembering this now.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I remember it. We would just crank the PA to send signals back in there like a traditional echo chamber. But since we had that big vault door, we would also sometimes just run headphones in there. And on the Soda Pop Kids record that I did, a lot of the super echoey backing vocals, that especially the falsetto stuff, it's me and Devin singing in unison these falsetto parts, and we were just in the room,
right?
And that was the sound. So
that was what I was going to ask you, is of all the sessions you did at the Color Lab, how many times did you actually use and it actually made the final cut?
Probably every time, just because it was new and fresh. And when I have anything that's new and fresh, I use it a lot. But that was also really good. It was 7 seconds of echo. And you could do things like we could throw a slow gate on it to shorten it up if we wanted to. And, it was, I don't know, still to this day, you've seen it with this recording we've been doing with Andrew Leach.
Andrew Leach, the great Andrew Leach, ukulele master.
I'm so attracted to that natural reverb sound. A real room just sounds really cool to me. So even if it's blasting out of a PA and we're catching it in there, that's more real and spontaneous, and there's real air than, a plug-in or a pedal or a rack mount effects. In the case of Andrew Leach, in there we have a big old ribbon mic on the ukulele, because I just wanted to sort of darken up, tame the picking of the ukulele.
This is the current live room at Goat Mountain Studios.
This is the current live room at Goat Mountain on the session
ceilings,
we're on now.
it feels like they're 28 feet tall. I don't know.
They're 14.
It's immense. It's a big room, and
it feels great, though. Yeah.
And so we're tracking uke.
Yeah. So we have this big ribbon mic on Andrew's ukulele, and then we have a 47 on his vocal, a big tube mic, medium diaphragm. I think it's medium large diaphragm, but big old tube mic on his vocal. And then to get what we're talking about now, these natural reverb sounds, I have 2 Edwinas, ear trumpet Edwinas. The live room is already big. The live room is about 1,000 square feet. And I have these 2 Edwinas stretched out from Andrew far left and right, not all the way in the corners or sides. We're sort of, the room isn't square, and Andrew's not
And it's not square on purpose.
It's not square on purpose, and this is where we're going with Ignacio, our architect. But I have these two Edwinas, and they're not even pointed at Andrew. They're pointed up at the ceiling, and they're just there to capture stereo reverb in the room. And the great thing about the room is, by design, Ignacio, I don't know everything he went through. He could tell you everything, but it's shot out in some scientific way to be good for music. And one of the things I do know is that there's no parallel walls in this room anywhere. The ceiling to the floor, the walls to each other, to everybody. Everything's just a little skewed enough. It's very pleasing to the eye. It looks pretty normal.
It's a carefully curated, designed for exactly what you're doing room, which is hard to come by. Most people repurpose other rooms. The decay of the reverb is so smooth.
That's with the design. With these non-parallel walls, you don't have slaps building up because you have an even, like a large space reflecting the same thing back and forth. And this is what makes everything really intelligible. You can understand everything in this room. The way our brains work, our brains, like, on all our senses, our brains like edges. If you touch something, you run your finger across a piece of paper, but somebody's written something on that paper with ballpoint pen, you don't really feel a difference of the paper. You feel like, oh, it's like this, it's smooth, and then, and you hit that pen mark, it's like an edge. When you look up at the sky, like a night sky, you see the edges of the discs, the stars, the moon, things like that. With hearing, it's the same thing. We're looking for sibilants, edges. We can hear tone, and we experience it just like, rubbing your finger across the paper. A long thing, but it's really like, the roughness in those things, in those waves, and sometimes the edges that really bring your attention out. And so the downside of that is when you have a room that produces a lot of that slapback in a vocal. So when somebody goes, hey, and it goes, hey, like this.
Like an echo chamber.
Yeah. No, echo chambers are usually smooth.
Okay.
By design.
But
that slap, things become unintelligible. It becomes harder to hear, understand somebody singing.
It gets muddled.
There's an echo in there, but it's like a pleasing echo.
It rolls off.
It just rolls
in like a nice circular,
yes,
like a wave cresting. It just
without
falls
without any slaps.
Right.
And that's one of the secrets to audio.
I feel like you could model that.
Yes.
In a digital plug-in and make $1 billion.
No, so I use stuff like this. They're called emulation reverbs. Okay. When I use a plug-in reverb, this is funny. These are the reverbs I still prefer to this day. And they're emulations that I've had, for a decade or more. But some of them are famous reverb chambers of various studios that are out there. I don't even know if some of these are legal, so we're not going to mention which studios, but I have these emulation reverbs, and they're just algorithms of these rooms, and you can put the plug-in in and run a sound through it, and it comes back, like you're in the room. And they do this by striping a room. They basically, it's called striping a room, but they take first low tone pulses that have moved to high, boom, 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 boom. They do that across the room, and they record it, and then they do a sweep. Woo! And from that, they're able to back engineer the math somehow.
Algorithms, grids.
Yes, make that, and now you can have that reverb anywhere.
Technology.
It's an amazing room. And tell me again the architect's name?
Ignacio Moreno Elst.
And then, did you guys hang out with him a bunch, or did you meet him?
Pat knew his wife before they were married, Katie McIntosh, and she was a publicist, and she worked with Pat's band, Blue Skies for Black Hearts, for a long time. And we met Ignacio. When did we meet Ignacio? Before the wedding?
I met Ignacio in Portland. It was just kind of a slow friendship. It was mostly because I'd be traveling through wherever Katie was living, and we would have a meeting in person, and I'd get to meet her husband. We'd fix food together, that kind of thing.
But they got married in Las Vegas shortly after I met Pat. It was
What was the name of that
few years
agency? Was
later.
it XO?
Exo
Publicity.
Okay.
Yep.
And we went to their wedding in Vegas and met their whole family, and their
became tighter
family's
and
like our
tighter.
family now. They're his sisters and their husbands are pretty much like family now.
And eventually, at this point, Nacho was working.
Nacho's Ignacio.
Yeah, Nacho
That's his
was
name.
working for American Apparel, designing stores and that kind of thing. And he decided to go to architecture school. And he started this eco-architecture school at the University of Oregon. And I would just hang out with him, and, I was interested in what my friend was doing. And like, wow, like, what are you working on? And he got one summer, like, Katie was all excited. I showed up, and she's like, did Ignacio tell you he's in Dwell? And she, as a publicist, had got him in Dwell. I think that this is how this probably went down.
Right.
But it was over a house that he designed on a lake in Indiana, where Katie's originally from. And it was her family's lake house. And he'd remodeled it, but really redone it.
He kind of has a Frank Lloyd Wright sensibility where he's like into like nature and what the view is from this window, and there's a tree there, and like the sunset's over here, and like he frames all that, which is some of the inspiration that he brought here to the studio.
And
when I asked him about that, like what's up with the house in Dwell, that's all he told me. He didn't tell me anything about the house. He told me about the tree and the moon and the lake.
just
So we're like, that's our guy. Like
spiritual. on
Yeah,
all
so
levels.
like at this point, no, it wasn't like that's our guy. Like it was not even on my radar.
Yeah.
But when I realized I had a problem, that I was going to lose my studio in Portland, I started very quickly
I want to dive all into that story.
working on what I was going to do. When this idea occurred to me, I mean, it was hilarious.
Let me stop you right there. Permapress recording.
Yeah.
The location was right next to Centaur Guitar, Sandy Boulevard.
Yeah, 28th and Sandy Boulevard.
The console that you have to make a callback, that you're just putting a pitch for anybody that wants to have a good console in a new home. That's that console.
Yeah,
That's the
that was the
console.
one at Permapress. Yes.
Okay. So Permapress, when did you get in there? What year was it? It was right after the Color Lab, right? You didn't have
It would
a
have been
studio in
2007 because I was there 10 years and a month. So, yeah, 2007.
And then tell me about, so everything's going good. It's a smaller space than you're used to, but it's really working. It's tight.
It was just really good because it was behind my friend's guitar shop, and I really needed to get rid of my business partner from the Color Lab. And I could afford this place, and it was actually close to my house that I owned. Like I could just walk to and from work.
You procured yet another commercial lease.
Yeah, that was my second one.
Do you have some kind of commercial agent?
No. Like, I mean, it's hilarious. I went from the Merry Pranksters to my punk rock friends.
This
that
was all
talked
Portland.
talked
Like
me
it
from
was just
moving
kind of like a
from
handshake
Seattle
deal.
to Portland.
You didn't need an agent. It was just, here you
It
go.
was, the building was illegal. My toilet, nobody knew where my toilet drained to. That was the kind of situation we had there.
How do you find out about the availability of that space?
Oh, I got kicked out of a session. It turned out that the pranksters, or at least their kids, were very difficult landlords. And so I was getting really busy there because it was a
Didn't
good
they have
good
contingencies
studio.
like when they're practicing you can't record or something?
No, the
It was-
rules kind of always changed. And so he just got jealous. He wanted to be in a band, and he just figured that, like, having this recording studio there, he could be in any band that happened to show up. But he wanted to be in a band that was like what his parents were into, because that particular band was held on a pedestal of the highest thing. So, for example, this didn't happen this particular day. It either happened shortly before this. It happened shortly before this incident. The week before.
You got kicked out of a session.
Yeah, it might have even been this session. I think it was. So this is what happened. This band, My Favorite Everything, showed up to record, and it was really intense for me because one of the members has Hodgkin's lymphoma and he's dying. And we're trying to do the session. One day we show up in the afternoon. It was like a Thursday or a Friday. I'm just getting set up, getting ready to go. The band, everybody's excited. The fellow's feeling well, you know, so things are good. And we go to record, and the prankster kid shows up, and he's in the mood to just jam. He doesn't have anybody to jam with, but he wants to jam, but they're recording, and their music is not the kind of music that he's into at all. And so he has a freak out that we need to clear the studio for a while. And I think what happened is I sent them, I don't think they witnessed this. I think I sent them down to Slabtown, which was the bar down the road. So anyway, while I'm negotiating with Prankster Kid about like, so how long you want the studio so I can get these guys back in and
Has
record.
he paid you yet?
Who, the band?
Yeah.
The band?
This is all free, pro bono?
No, the prankster guy?
Yeah.
He's my landlord.
Oh.
I owe him money.
Right.
Like I didn't owe him money.
Right.
I was
So basically, the landlord thought he could barge in on any session, anytime, and
yeah.
Without a plan and just
bust
wants
up
to
the
jam.
session
Yeah,
and say
just,
like,
just
"Oh,
like you guys aren't
my
recording.
guys are coming over. I want to
you
jam."
guys aren't recording. I'm jamming. You're out of here.
Okay.
So that's what he told us. I sent them down the road, and as I'm discussing with him the situation, like when can we get back in? How long do you want it? Like, he holds me up, and this dude's huge. He was like a lineman at University of Oregon, kind of thing, on the football team. And he fucking holds me up against the wall with his elbow or forearm kind of thing, and starts yelling at me. He's testing me. He says, "Who's the greatest band of all time or in the world," or some bullshit like this. And I was like, I don't know, the Beatles? And he fucking melted down. He's like, "You're wrong," in my face. "The Grateful Dead." And I was like, I knew that with you, man. Oh,
That's
sorry.
up there with you. You saw the Dead several
That's so
times.
fucked. It's so unprofessional.
So fucking weird. It was so weird, this experience.
What a dick.
He's a dick. That was maybe the last time I spoke with him, because that was the moment I knew. I was like, this isn't working out, and this is possibly going to get weirder if I stick around. So we started looking for a place, or like in that moment in my mind. But the funny thing was, I walked down the street to meet the band, and this festival was going on that Susan and I were just trying to remember the name of.
That's Slabtown.
Yeah, and it was like 12 punk rock bands on a Friday night, and this went into Saturday and Sunday, like all day, all night. And Jason was there from Centaur Guitar, Jason Snell, who's one of the people who talked me from moving to Seattle to Portland.
One of the best music stores.
Well, you got to go back to Studio 13 because there's a connection to Jason Snell with Studio 13.
Oh, Studio 13 was in Jason's dad's basement. Bill Snell's basement. So, I mean, these guys are tight. Like, they're like family to me. And Jason and I run into each other, and we go whiles sometimes without seeing each other. It's like, dude, what's happening? I'm like, shit's not good, buddy. And he's like, really? He's like, well, stuff isn't good for us either. Their roadie, the Muddy River Nightmare Band's roadie, had a record store in the other side of Centaur Guitar, and he hadn't paid his rent for like 6 months or something like that. So they were in the process of uncomfortably having to kick their own roadie out of the shop, and he's like, dude, do you want to be the renter? And I'm like, I can handle.
But I remember us we kind of like went to see it, and it's just like there's like stuff all over the place. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my god, how are we gonna go from like the color lab, like the glamorous color lab with the big chandelier, to this?
Back
How
to
are we gonna do
Studio
this?
13.
Yeah, back to
but-
Studio 13, really, because that was
Bill
the situation.
Snell, he's like a workhorse powerhouse like dad dude,
unbelievable.
and he just
he
like
was, yeah.
we can knock, we'll knock these walls down, and we'll make this, and we'll soundproof this, and there's going to be a loft here, and like it's going to be rad, and like
Well, it was our idea to take that. They had a loft in the live room, what became the live room. So the live room used to be 2 stories, like a regular loft, and Jason had his office in there, and it was like just all plywood and paper everywhere, like printers like stacked.
He's kind of a
on
hoarder.
there.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Jason, if you're listening. Sorry,
Oh.
you're kind of a hoarder.
Shout out to Jason Snell. Anyway, yeah. So to give Matt Morgan credit, he recognized that he's like, dude, we should blow the loft out, because he was considering making the move with me. It was mutual in the end. I had decided, like, I was giving Matt a call to be like, dude, I'm renting this myself and you're out, you know? And he saved phone call like, hey, I'm really glad you called. I'm not in.
So yeah, so that worked out well.
Like, okay, that's cool.
Happily ever after.
Yes. Love when
Yes,
things
very,
work out like
very
that.
happily. I hope he's doing okay. He was working for Modest Mouse for a minute.
Yeah, he was doing
I
some
don't know what he
high-profile
was
gigs for a
doing.
while, huh?
This is what I'm saying. It's hard out here in the studio game. You want to own a studio, you want to make a space. I mean, it takes a lot, dude.
It's sometimes it's easier having a partner, but you know, like I was always really what's the right word? It's not envious. It's like kind of, and it's not in awe. That's a little too strong. But the Type Foundry guys, like how they cooperated to make that partnership work. I mean, I just never ever heard anybody talking dirt about the others or bullshit. I'm sure shit happened, you know.
It was a great space, the Type Foundry.
Yeah, but they did a really good job, and I feel like they were stronger because of the partnership than 3 separate dudes. People rotated through, so I'm not naming names, but Adam and Jason were my main guys over there. I used to work there too, just as a freelance guy now and again.
So you're at Permapress. Everything's going great. You're booking sessions. People are coming in. They're tracking. There's awesome trains going by, which adds for incredible sound
That
effects.
ends up on the recording.
The Irish bar, what was it?
Katie O'Brien's.
O'Brien's.
Breakfast,
man.
breakfast and screwdrivers.
I need to go
Right.
back in the next time I'm in Portland.
That's one
I
thing
miss
we
that
lack here in
place.
the desert. We need a good
A
dive
good
bar
dive
here.
bar, yeah.
Everything's going great. And then one day, somebody buys a plot of land right behind the studio and decides to build condos.
Well, no, I was out before that because I realized we were leaving on tour. It would have been Blue Sky's last tour, so like fall of 2014 it was. And we were going out around late October into early November, West Coast, like a half dozen 5 dates, something like that. And as we were packing the van to leave for the first show, my neighbor who had this weed store that just like, I mean, I watched his people park in our parking lot all day and go in and out. So I was like, this guy's fucking making bank. I am in the wrong business. Oh my God, this guy's making so much money. And then as we're, you know, shutting the doors to the van and getting ready to hop on I-84, this fellow comes over and he's like, hey man, I just want to let you know, come the election in November, weed is going to go full legal here.
2016.
That's when it ended up going, but the election was 2014, the fall.
Okay.
And he's like, I'm going to open a weed cafe in your space, so I'm going to buy you out of your lease. And I was like, whoa, you know, wow. Because, like, if somebody could buy me out of my lease, like, this is the guy, like, for sure. And I get the motivation and everything. It's not really being a dick. Like, I appreciate the heads up. You know, he knew I wasn't going to be psyched about it, but I thought that was a real solid thing to do. And the nice thing about being in a band and on the road is you got a moment to think in the van. And so this whole thing kept wheeling through my head. I was like, I wonder if our landlord will let him buy us out of our lease. And then I was like, you know, that doesn't really matter. Our building's a piece of shit. And really what's going on is the neighborhood's getting nicer. Gentrification's rolling up, and this guy opening his weed cafe, that's what he wants to open his weed cafe up to. He doesn't want to open his weed cafe up on piece of shit Sandy. He sees that the Zipper just opened and we got fancy restaurants suddenly.
And there's about to be a 50-story condo right next door.
Well, that's what ended up moving in. So
Can I stop you right there, though?
Yeah.
I want to talk about something. The Blue Skies van.
Yeah.
blue stripe, white,
Vanessa.
Ford.
This was the last tour was Peanut Butter. We had a new van. So and Peanut Butter had its own problems.
I forgot about peanut butter.
Yeah,
But the blue stripe, white van.
yeah, Vanessa. Yeah,
That, I mean, you guys rolled that up and down the I-5.
we rolled
so
that.
many
I
times.
drove that thing in Manhattan, dude. I mean, we rolled that thing across
So
the
that
country.
was like the war wagon.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I've never seen a band load out and load in more efficiently. Like you guys would middle a lot.
Well,
it seemed
that was
like.
Mike Lewis. He was like the Tetris master of
And
loading.
because we did it a lot.
You guys from the last song to the doors are closing and we're loaded was like, it was something to watch. Like you can make it a documentary about how efficient it was. You guys all working in this like seamless team.
Dude, we just wanted to get the fuck out of there.
You
at
guys
that
were
point.
the best.
Actually, we're
You guys
becoming
were the best.
we're becoming pretty good on our tours.
Yeah, and it's sort of
With
the
the
same
van
thing.
loading.
Susan has become the Mike Lewis.
I've become the Tetris master.
Yeah, I'm just
touring.
a Sherpa. I just go in and grab gear and.
There's a podcast in Portland. It's called Tour Punisher.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I want to advertise on it, but I don't know. I haven't reached out to him. But
That's hosted by Ryan Soley, right?
he's one of the guys.
Yeah.
It's the Builders and the Butchers guys. There's two of them. I forget the other guys. The amazing live band. Amazing.
Yeah, we
record.
love that band.
Yeah, and but the premise of the podcast is all these horror stories of bands on tour, like, and these are
man.
signed bands with like real tours, and they're still in the van, they're crashing at people's houses.
You know, I love a concept album.
Well, this is what I'm saying with this. What I want to come back to is the Blue Skies van, right? You guys are up and down the I-5, like Sacramento. We're crashing with fans. LA, like, I mean, I don't know how many hotel rooms you guys had.
Not many.
Few and far between.
Yes.
So whenever I listen to the Tour Punisher podcast, which is available everywhere podcasts are available, it always reminds me of the real true road warriors, and which I'm so jealous because I never got to. I don't think I would want to do that anymore. It sounds too rough. But when you're 25 or whatever, and you're all into playing music,
I'm still going on the road, but we're doing it easier these days.
We're doing easier gigs.
can I give you a
Yeah.
couple of Tour Punisher drops?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so one is no bananas in the van.
Ooh.
What do you think?
Pat has a story about that. It's not
Yeah.
pretty.
That's a big reoccurring
I
thing.
think Mike Lewis would agree with that one.
Okay.
Let's just let it go with that.
The other one is waffle stomper. When you take a shit in the bathtub and you squish it down the drain.
All right, you guys. No, this is like
Whoa.
that's
That's a
crazy.
Tour Punisher.
No.
I only know about that because of the Tour Punisher podcast. So
Who does that?
Yeah, that's like
people
beyond.
sharing hotel rooms.
Because you got to go so bad and
Well,
somebody's
or
on the can?
The toilet's broken.
Oh.
Whatever.
Yeah, because we do.
Another Mike Lewis.
Yeah, we do stay at excellent hotels, us bands.
Yeah, but that's life on the road,
Yeah.
And you guys were so good at loading in and loading out. Man, watching you guys load out was like fucking poetry in motion. Most bands, they take their time. It's a battle. Who's gonna load gear? Who's gonna actually?
We were just one of those bands that was always on the 4-band bill and on the road, so we were fighting for money. So we were there, like, you'd leave your gear in the club to the last minute because sometimes it was a holdout of like, we want to go home, we want our money. We'll get our shit out of here once we get paid.
It was amazing to watch.
Thank you.
So you made the decision to leave Permapress before the condo development even happened.
Well, when we were on that tour, and I had all that time to think, and I was mulling it through my head, like I was saying, like, is our landlord going to let us buy it out? And I started to realize that gentrification had been rolling up the road, and it was 1 block away. They'd taken this old gas station and turned it into the Zipper. And there was a fancy coffee shop, which I was a regular at. And a place to get, it was a classic Portland place. Remember, you couldn't get any normal food in there. It was hilarious. But you could get beer. It was a nice place to go after sessions or for lunch and that kind of thing. But it started to occur to me that, like, I started to play the game. You ever play the game, Where Do You See Yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, doesn't everybody?
Yeah. And in this particular situation and thinking about it while being on the road, I was like, in 5 years, I don't see myself being at Permapress anymore, and it has nothing to do with me. That if this guy doesn't buy us out, it's on. We're the target for gentrification. We have a shitty building with toilets that nobody knows where they go to. It's rat infested. And then on that same tour, that was when I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I couldn't think about leaving Portland. That just didn't occur to me.
That also means leaving Blue Skies.
No, by then, on this particular tour, I was like, that's a whole different story.
Right.
It wasn't like a bad tour, but the band just got to be a point where it was really hard to keep it going because of the way personalities are. Well, that kind of thing.
If I could interject, if you don't mind, you lost 2 key members right at the end, and you replaced them with...
We were always volatile with members, but when we started to hit our stride and we became these road warriors, we did lose 2 key members, but
you and Mike Lewis were kind of the core of the...
Yeah, I don't want to give those guys too much credit. It's not that I'm dissing them. They were great and they did things.
Yeah, it was kind of iconic when it was like the 4-piece with Kelly and Paul, and it was kind of the iconic Blue Skies lineup.
But Mike was there from the very beginning to the very end, and it was sort of a different. I had good relationships with these other guys, but the amount of work that people would put in, it's very hard to keep a band going like that.
People's lives go different ways, and we're at that age where people's lives are going different ways, and it was just destined to happen.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It's weird
really
because
hard.
We put out 6 studio records, and Mike played on all but one, the very first one, and the other 2 guys, one of them played on 2 and one of them played on 2.5 of those guys. And I don't want to minimize it, but to me, when I look back, there's 3 quintessential Blue Skies albums to me, which is Love Is Not Enough, Serenades and Hand Grenades. Actually, there's kind of 4. Embracing the Modern Age, and then the self-titled one.
Which was the new member. That one encompassed the new members.
Yeah, the last 2 are the strongest, which is the self-titled one and Embracing the Modern Age. And Embracing the Modern Age and the self-titled one have completely different lineups in bass and drums, and the last one, we have the addition of Mark officially on keyboards.
The great Mark Breitenbach.
Yeah, Mark played on I think every but one of those studio albums.
An amazing keyboard player, skill musician.
We would love to get him down here.
Yeah, I would love to get him down here, but it's hard.
He's had a hell of a couple of years.
Yeah.
And, but you can find all of his music on 525records.com. And if I could just say, one of my favorite Blue Skies songs from Serenades is Susie, Please Come Home. The video you guys shot, Mount Hood, or where was that?
That was up on Mount Hood, yeah.
In the middle of the snow. You guys are in the middle of a snowpack.
Well, when we got there, it was sunny, and it was nice, and that was the plan. And then... literally, I remember this. Justin goes, "All right, action!" And I remember looking to my right because we were in a little valley, and there's this it looked like an avalanche, but it was just a storm, just came down, and by the end of the first shot, 30 seconds or whatever, we were all in the storm, and it was just well, keep going.
You guys spent all day out there getting coverage, right?
No. We lasted
3 hours.
No, probably 20 minutes.
Well, the video came out unbelievable.
They were shooting. I think they were shooting more than one camera. I don't remember. I remember some things about that very, vividly. I don't remember how many cameras there were, but I think there was more than one. I think there was two.
I thought there was at least three, but it's been a while since I've seen it.
But they moved, and it was very like all the plans were set because it was, even when it was sunny, it was very difficult to move in this deep powder and all the snow we were in, and it was spring or melty, at least when we were there. I don't remember what, it was probably fall, but it was like very melty.
I believe that video is still up on YouTube.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was some controversy with the band about that, but let's
there's nothing worse.
let that pass.
When you lose a bass player and a drummer, that's the end of most bands. There's no coming back from that. I mean, other than months and months and months of auditions to try to find the right two people, you, on the other hand, found two new guys who were amazing. And it seemed from an outsider's perspective, with no personal attachment to any of these guys, like, oh, wow, that was fast. Like, boom, you guys are back up and running, recording on
I
the
think
road.
it was just because we were still even amongst all this, like a band on the rise in people's minds. And so we were a desirable band for good musicians to be in. So it was easy to attract people. Those two guys, Jason and Grant, I love them dearly, but also like it was so fast, and these guys weren't really road warriors like us. We were in a position where we couldn't afford guys that we needed. You know, we just didn't make enough money on the road, and so we didn't get guys that were used to the road, and it was doing shows, and even regionally, we were mainly regional for that last album, like just the Pacific Northwest. We did one or two tours.
Well, I can remember one in particular. You guys flew to New York. I remember Mark had to go
I
on
flew
that.
them to New York a couple times. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And
That was on...
Greg,
that was on...
Greg Odell came.
The
right?
last tour was Greg Odell, and I
Yeah.
think did we have Dave Burkham on the last tour? What bass player did we bring on the very last tour? I know some of the last shows we had Dave Burkham, but I
Yes,
can't remember
Dave
if he
Burkham
was
did play
on
several
the last
shows,
tour.
but I can't
Just-
remember.
I
I mean-
think Grant was on the very last tour, but we lost Jason at that point.
You had
Oh, Joe Mangus.
Joe Mingus.
Joe Mangus was
Joe
in.
Mangus.
No, he was in the interim. That was a
Yeah, he
weird
was an
tour.
interim drummer.
We still had Kelly when we had Joe Mangus on the tour. That was that tour was hard.
I only know this from Mark's perspective, because from an outsider's perspective, I'm not in the band. I'm not, I'm listening. I'm not, tuned into all your tour dates, but I just remember Mark's like, yeah, I got to go to New York and play this show with Blue Skies. And it was a big moment. I was like, holy fuck, you're going to fly from Portland to New York to do one gig? And then he had
No, we usually do 3 or 4, and it
Okay.
was, I don't know what we did, but we were in a position where we had to go to fucking New York City
It was
to
Philly. You
appease
guys did
the
Philly a
people
couple
we were
times,
working with.
and Dawson.
Yeah. I loved it. I still love doing all that. But it takes a toll on you. And it's a lot of it's not all, it's definitely not all glory. I mean, there's moments that make you live for it, but a lot of it is really hard. And the hard part eventually for us outweighed the things that were making us want to keep doing it.
One of the things that comes up on the Tour Punisher podcast a lot is Bakersfield. It seems like every band...
I never played Bakersfield,
Okay,
but
well,
I like Bakersfield, but I understand everybody's pain.
every
we
band
like,
that
like
goes...
the Bakersfield sound. Like that's like kind of a new inspiration for the
Yeah,
sound we're going on now, right?
yeah. I mean, that's been a thing for me, but it's come to the surface.
It's notorious in the van world. It's
Living out here.
a rough crash.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
What are people's stories like? Where are they playing there?
Europe, all over.
No. The
In
Bakersfield, because there's like the
Oh,
club situation's kind of weird.
Well, I just tell you from the last episode of the Tour Punisher podcast, I forget who was on. I'm sorry, but they were staying in Bakersfield at a fan's house. The drummer hooked up with a girl at the gig, and one of the guitar players is pitching a tent in the backyard because he's allergic to cats, and the yard is filled with leaves. And so he goes to sleep, and at some point during the night, the drummer and the girl get together at her house, and it turns out that the place they're crashing is her quote-unquote boyfriend, even though she thinks they're broken up. So long story short, this guy, he goes try to bust down the door, doesn't get in, the cops get called, he gets arrested, he goes to jail, and then he gets out, and he comes back to the crash house, unbeknownst to the rest of the members, especially the guy in the tent in the backyard, who is now covered in spiders, right? Like, it just was one of those deals. And then the dude's like, hey, you want to go get Eggs Benedict? Like,
we got stuck in Bakersfield one time, and we
got stuck for a snowstorm.
Yeah, it was a snowstorm, and the highways were closed, and like we had no choice but to get like a
going over the Tehachapi. No. Well, first we
Roach Motel.
First we tried to wait it out, and we went to the Crystal Palace.
Yeah, we went to the Crystal Palace.
Had some chili, which is Buck Owens' bar and performance space.
Have you
and
ever
that was
been there,
cool.
the Crystal Palace?
I don't think so.
And while sitting there, we decided or came to terms with it, like they're not going to open the Tehachapi Pass tonight. Like, it's a snowstorm, it's getting dark, it's night, we're not making it home. And so Susan got on Priceline and got us a Motel 6. Motel 6 Bakersfield.
Yeah.
And, so we're having a good time, having a few drinks at the Crystal Palace. And like I said, eating some chili. Yeah. And it gets real late, and we head over to the Motel 6. The 3 rooms around our room, the 2 on either side and the 1 below us, are all boarded up with plywood.
This is
out
like
windows.
road dogging it for sure.
Yeah. Fucking crazy people, meth people, like wandering the hotel. This whole, the fucking harshest of harsh of Bakersfield, which is, there's a lot of rough places in the U.S., but I know enough of Bakersfield without even playing there to know it's one of the roughest. Easy.
It was like the only hotel left in town because like everybody was stuck on.
No, there were other hotels, but we weren't willing to pay the price. It was a regret. I remember that because this is a new rule.
But the other thing, they were
that
corralling people into like the fairgrounds or something. I remember that. Like you got to stay at the fairgrounds.
No more Motel 6 in Bakersfield.
Yeah, like, no bananas in the van.
Yeah, I will do Motel 6 in some places, but Motel 6 in Bakersfield is, man.
Hey, all you 525 fans out there, I want to tell you about an amazing little documentary I shot back in 2017, all about the last days of the 525 house in Portland, Oregon. We weren't the only ones getting evicted. That is a big pile of steaming shit that someone just left on our doorstep today.
Just rent out the fucking greasiest fucking bar in Portland for a baby party.
I'm gonna rip your balls off so you cannot contaminate the rest of the world. I will motivate your private pile.
Please don't throw the bottle.
Quit giving me awesome ideas.
All right.
Stop this! You're impersonating me! Stop this! Impersonating me!
Kyle Gibson? Yeah. He punched me in the face.
Get out of here!
Last Days of 525, a documentary available on the 525 Records YouTube channel. And, of course, as always, on 525records.com. Now, back to the podcast. So you leave Portland. You record a record called So Long City.
I started to record that in the interim period between... Well, I started to record it before I realized I was leaving. We bought a house for super cheap in Joshua Tree in 2014. It's just Susan and I work for ourselves.
This was before the hype about Joshua Tree existed.
Yeah, always looking for an angle. So I'll just tell everybody, we bought a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Joshua Tree. You're staying at it, Elliot.
That's the Airbnb game.
Yeah, we paid $87,000 for that house.
A steal. It's a steal.
It was ridiculous. So that was our foot in the door. In the
kind of
community.
facilitated our move.
You're still in Portland. You buy a
Yeah,
house
we
in
were
Joshua
we
Tree.
were just looking for an investment. We had a little bit of money from selling my house in Portland when we moved in together and did some things like that. And we were like, what can we do to like improve this? And we came here on vacation, and Susan loved the community. I've loved this community for a long time and been interested in it. And she got on whatever it was, Redfin at that point in time. And she's like, you're not going to believe what houses cost here. Yeah, so the final blow, kind of everything, when Blue Skies got to the end of that tour, Mike Lewis and I were hanging out here in Joshua Tree at the house at the end of the tour. And I was thinking about work and this upcoming album that I had coming to work on. And oddly enough, at this point, I was telling you we had problems with Peanut Butter the van. Peanut Butter the van had broke down at one point, and we had to get a rental car that we were required to return in Fresno. But Peanut Butter the van was fixed, and Mike and I were the last two members left on this tour. Everybody else had flown home by the time we got to Southern California. And so Mike and I started heading home towards Portland, coming up all the roads and coming past here. And riding in two separate vehicles. He was driving Peanut Butter, and I was driving some weirdo Mitsubishi thing that we'd rented out of Fresno. And as I came up around the corner here at Border and Ricci Road, I got a phone call from this artist I was working with. No, I got a phone call from a recording studio that I was taking this artist I was working with, and they were pulling our dates, and I was really upset because
It was supposed to be a destination recording.
it was a destination recording. Like, I was doing a lot of this, like going to other recording studios and freelancing. And I knew it would get me fired, and that was kind of the last straw between the guy wanting to buy us out of our lease, me not being able to see the studio existing, that gentrification would roll through the neighborhood within 5 years, and the fact that I didn't have control of a studio people wanted to go to, and it was causing chaos in my life because other people were deciding the schedule and not me.
And yet again, you had to move studios.
Well, I did, but this is the point where it occurred to me. I was driving down Ricci Road right through Landers here. I was like, I thought about my situation in Portland, and I was like, I can't make a move. The economics of a lateral move is to get an equivalent space as to what I'm in, and I need a better space. An equivalent space is going to be even more expensive. And
Daunting.
I can't afford it. I don't want to rent because
You've been there.
I've been there. I've been renting, and the reason that my situation is out of control is I'm a renter. And I looked out this direction right at Goat Mountain and was like, but I could afford land here. And I called Susan. I was like, I got this stupid idea.
And what did you think when he first proposed moving to the Joshua Tree area?
Well, since we got our Airbnb in 2014, the rental property, we already had that intact, and it was already kind of going at a certain level. I was excited about moving to the area. I was excited about change. And when Pat proposed that idea to me about maybe he didn't get to this, but buying some land out here and building a permanent situation, I was super excited about it.
You're like, fuck yeah, let's do this.
She thought that part was a good idea, but I was like, but in the same phone call, I'm like, but it entails all in, selling everything we own up in Portland, our house, her salon, and eventually rebuilding here.
And the murder wins.
We didn't know about them, though.
We didn't know about the murder wins.
She was okay with it.
Take the leap.
And I told her next, I said, well, if we do something crazy like this, and we buy land and this kind of thing, like, get this, like, Nacho. You know, and that's all I had to say was, you know,
Ignacio.
Ignacio, he's in architecture school.
Is
And-
his nickname is Nacho?
Yeah,
it's
short
just
for
names,
that's where nachos come from.
Okay.
Somebody named Ignacio invented the dish, and his short for Ignacio is Nacho. I used to have issues with this, and I was like, how about I just call you Iggy?
I'm like, is that appropriate?
Like,
Should we call him Nacho? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and then I found out too, and
You're canceled.
yeah, no, it's cool. It's all good. He
I mean-
prefers Nacho. So
Regardless of who he is or what he does, he built an amazing room.
Yeah.
And, he did a fantastic job.
So, this is a funny part of the story here. So I told Susan, I'm like, I think we have Nacho design it. She's like, oh, she'd heard the same stories about the house on the lake with the tree and the moon and, things like that. She's like, that's absolutely the right guy.
Fuck yeah.
Our situation. And the funny part, and I laughed about this and was honest with him from the very beginning. I said, and you're probably the only guy we can afford because you're a friend and you're only in the second year of your architecture school, and if I walk this fucking crazy nut house idea into any architecture firm,
Yeah, like we're
that's
out of
where
the
all our
ballgame.
money's going to end up, and there's not going to be a studio.
It's just stars aligning.
Yeah.
Stars aligning.
And so still at this point, I'm like maybe like around this part of Ricci Road, Alta.
Landers,
That's the cross
California.
street coming down. And I tell Susan, let's hang up. Let me call Katie. I have Nacho's number, but I really felt it was appropriate to call Katie first because she was my older friend of the two and a very close friend, and also because I worked with Katie, and because of doing something like this, I was like, it had the potential to turn our lives upside down.
All of our lives.
All of our lives, the four of us.
What if it all goes wrong?
Yeah, I could be really upset with you. We never felt that way. I mean, nothing ever came to anything like that. And nothing ever really went bad. I mean, we had rough spots or whatever. You have that naturally doing any project like this, but it was easy. And it was good with them. But I called Katie up and I said, hey, I got this wacky idea of buying land and building a studio in the desert. And I wanted to ask Nacho to design it. And I kind of felt it would be best to call you first and ask if that was okay before, like, we ran off on the crazy train here. And she's like, I love it. She's like, I'm handing the phone to Nacho. If he doesn't say yes, tell him to hand the phone immediately back to me because the answer is yes. Which I loved from his wife. To Nacho's credit, he said yes. He was in on the idea. He was like, whoa, this is crazy. I'm like, yeah, I know it's crazy. But he was in and we were all in. And it went from there, and we got a lot of crazy help. At one point in this time of the design of the studio, I was working at Bob Weir's studio, of all people, and Bobby gave us his blueprints, allowed me to photograph his blueprints off his desk one afternoon, which was a huge help to us. It really, it was something Nacho could look at, that things were in the prints of, like, running cables that made him start to consider things and that kind of thing. I think he may have lifted the control.
Nacho toured several
Often.
studios since,
Yeah,
like, we
since Katie's
talked
in the
about this.
business.
Like, he's done his due diligence, and he's toured several studios, like, throughout the country, and like,
He came and watched me work for a day at Permapress, and came and watched me work a day at Jackpot in town, in Portland, Oregon. He went to some studios in Chicago. I think he went, I know he went to some studios in Nashville as well, and he went to the Sweetwater studios in Illinois.
And
or Indiana, wherever they are. I think they're Illinois. But.
and here we are 5 years later.
yep.
You guys have been in the desert.
Yeah, well, we started the process at that point. We started designing it, getting all our permits, doing everything on the up and up, because we knew we were going to, build something that people would notice.
What is the website for Goat Mountain?
Oh, it's just Goat MT, like Goat Mountain, Goat, GOATMT.com. We don't do much there on the website, but it's a way where you can find contact information. The only thing we do on the internet at all at this point, after being open, we're almost open. It'll be 2 years next month.
And the Instagram is Goat Mountain Recording.
All we have is an Instagram.
On Instagram, so if anybody wants to come out here and do a little sesh, Goat Mountain Recording
And
on Instagram.
if I could just say, it's the benefit of being out here is the outdoor environment.
Mm-hmm.
Most studios, you go in, it's a windowless environment. You're in a control room, a live room, and it's just a total sweat box.
You're connected to the desert here.
With here, after you get done with ripping a take, you can walk outside, you can enjoy the view. What a good time to go OTG right before the pandemic, right before the world changed forever.
It was a necessary move for this situation, just to have good power so we would have good sound. I mean, man, I can't tell you, like, all of the studios I've ever worked in and I've owned have all been on the grid, and there's all been issues because of dirty power on the grid and just dealing with things. Not terrible issues, but just little buzzes, little things like, oh shit, that's happening. And being completely separate and in charge of our own thing and having a real sine wave inverter, the quiet here, the noise floor is low. Like, it's the studio is when nothing's running and you're not on the microphone, like, it's quiet.
Even with the doors open.
I know, it's quiet. I heard Andrew. Andrew's sitting with us now. He doesn't have a mic.
Andrew Leach.
But
the great Andrew Leach.
I heard Andrew walking outside today. He didn't know I was close. I was like doing something in another room, but the door was open and he's like, oh my God, it's so quiet.
Well, also I can say that, like, I was starting to take, and I was like, where did my quietness go? I could sense it was gone. And Elliot over here, he turned on the roads.
Yeah,
He's roads. Good. Yeah, he turned on the roads, and I could hear just the buzzing of just the motor.
Yeah,
not the motor, but like just the.
it's just the tubes vibrating.
It's tubes vibrating.
It's not even. It's a nothing sound.
And this was like 20 feet away from me.
Yeah,
and it was echoing in my ears, and I was like, I can't do this. No, this is not right. I've gotten so used to it after the last 2 days.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy how quiet it is.
Yeah,
here.
It's lovely. It's very lovely. And you go outside and it's still quiet. I'm like, how is it? You'll hear a dog or a coyote in the distance, or Elliot coughing. But either way,
that's like 50 or 60 feet away.
Watching the moonrise,
Yeah.
hearing Elliot coughing,
no,
coyote.
It's just beautiful. There's a quietude here.
It's very quiet in where we live in Landers. There's no how do I even explain this? It's just a California desert highway. The closest paved road is 1.5 miles away. But the closest like highway you'll find on a map is 9 miles away.
Yeah. Well, I know the difference between this and Portland, which has been a minute because I've been in the country for a bit, but like it is that it's either so quiet and so calm and wonderful, or it's really loud and I love it. You know, and it's like really.
I like Manhattan.
Yeah, I'm kind of one of those people. I either like to be out in the middle of nowhere where there's nothing, or in the heart of the city. You know,
exactly. I either want in the middle ground, in those middle ground areas. You're like, I get a little bored and I'm like weird, but at least they still love music. Like I think
we've been starting to have better luck outside of the urban areas.
It's better now.
Yeah,
because as Portland's been more and more gentrified, I feel like people take for granted how much music there is in Portland, and all these great musicians that go there to be musicians suffer for it, you know. And if they and now I go to my hometown or like some small town in the middle of nowhere, I play a few songs, and I get 20 Facebook requests, and people are like asking me when I'm doing my next show, and I have a bucket full of tips, you know.
Yeah.
Andrew's living in Oak Ridge, Oregon, which we've stopped in a few times.
It's a beautiful spot, yeah.
I like that. What's that little brew pub there?
It was just called the Brewers Union.
Yeah, Oak Ridge. I love
But-
that
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
But the owner, I used to play there, but the owner died, and
Is that what happened? I knew something happened, yeah.
and now it's called the Three-Legged Crane.
Yeah, that's right. I like that place. I stop in there. I've never played there, but I've sent musicians there because I stop in there. I come down Highway 58 in Oregon, sometimes heading to Pickathon
Yeah,
in the summer from here. I work at Pickathon. And it's like by the rhythm of the journey, it's like where I'm ready to get a meal and stop with the dog. And I know I can get a beer and sit like on the sidewalk or even bring the dog in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been a regular stop. I sent Rags Rosenberg, and he's played, like, I think at this point, like 3-4 times coming through that area.
Yeah, that place is great.
there's a few other spots there now, but like even that, like I remember the first time I really played a show there. I was in Portland still, and Annie Dang. I don't know if you know Annie Dang or not.
I've heard the name, yeah, I don't know.
Well, we got drunk one night, and I was like, "You need to come visit my mom," and she's like, "Yeah, I should." And it just turned into this whole thing, and we decided we're going to go down to Oak Ridge, and we did it in 2 weeks. And her brother came, and her bandmates came, and all of our friends showed up. Like maybe like 7 of us. And we showed up there, and 2 days before, I said, "Can we do a show?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure." We went to the hot springs, stayed the night, took mushrooms, and then played a show. And then that day,
that hot springs.
oh yeah,
Oh.
well, McCready, it's probably gone now. I don't know. I haven't been there since the fire.
No,
but-
it's still there. Oh, after the fire, I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like we came back and we played a show, and shit, they fed us well. They gave us all these beers. We had no tab. We had $300 and $300 in tips. You know,
Nah,
from like
amazing.
30 people in town, and ever since they've been calling me trying to get it to happen again. And I'm like, I try every year, but like, it's hard because, people get...
So, dude, now that you live out here, you guys got a Moose Lodge in Oak Ridge.
We do.
I'm a member of the Moose.
I'm a member of the Moose too.
Are you
are-
really?
we
We
are
have a
Moose
Moose
members.
Lodge here. We should.
Oh my God.
no.
Why are we there
the,
right now?
the Moose is not open while you're here, but dude, you're coming back.
I
And
will.
we need to plan it for days that we can go to the fish fry at the Moose Lodge on Friday. Maybe see Jan Brown play.
Cool. I mean, I call it a moose migration. I've been doing it quite a bit lately. I don't want to talk bad about my moose, but I'm starting to not favor my moose anymore. I was actually working as a bartender there. I was cooking
you
breakfast.
were all in.
I was
Yeah,
all
you
in.
were all
I was
in.
an officer. I
Yeah,
was like,
no,
okay,
no.
what can I? This was like I've only been there like 8 months.
Dude, I didn't even meet the Thursday where you go and you get the key. Like I still haven't done that.
We never got a
yeah.
key.
No,
I
it's not-
didn't.
I just
do
want to
it.
show for fish fry. I'm like,
But
I'm good
I
with it.
belong, and I go and I have drinks and sometimes go for a hot dog or a hamburger or a special. I like the Friday the fish and chips on Friday we have at ours here. It's very good. And sometimes I go in for Sunday the breakfast and
Bloody Mary,
Bloody
yeah.
Maria's. Because oh man.
Yeah. I was also doing karaoke. I was a KJing
Oh, my
on Saturdays.
God.
So I was all in. I was
Yeah.
so far in.
I can feel him starting to twist my arm to play there, and I'm
No.
like, dude, like,
I'd have to actually check it out first.
I don't think
To give you any
my
advice.
shtick is gonna go over well. We'll see.
Well, that's the hardest part. You got a great shtick, but no one likes it.
Dude, my shtick is similar to your shtick. This is probably, so yeah, it's like that's not a. They want a band that everybody can line dance to at my
Exactly,
place, and
yeah.
I'm playing country tunes, but it's probably I'm probably gonna bum you out too much to dance while we're at it. So
Crying in your beer, it keeps your beer full if you can do it.
Elliot Kotz, you're an amazing man. I'm so glad that you came down here to the desert. Came down here to the desert. You live in the same fucking desert.
No, thank you, Elliot.
You just lived in the air. You live in the air-conditioned part.
I'm glad to. Robert Bruce Burnham, Butte, Montana, Sadness on an Incline. You can find it on 525records.com. Andrew Leach, an amazing musician. He is one in a million. He's a ukulele master. You can find all his stuff wherever music is sold, Bandcamp primarily, if you want to really support the artist. And I look forward to the new record, which we're recording at the fabulous Goat Mountain Recording Studios, owned by Pat and Susan Kearns, who are the guests today on this episode of the podcast. So thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. And yeah, cheers.
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 Boom, we're done.
Why do we work so hard and still fall so behind? Why do we kill ourselves to live for Fridays after 5? If I gave you a ring tomorrow, would it be too late? I could make reservations for a little after 8. We can't get more time, guys. Let's start living for today. At least meet me for a nightcap at the Hideaway. Gonna start living. It's never too late. Gonna start living. It's never too late. Gonna start living. It's never too late. Gonna start living.